Hey, thanks for watching my poorly named channel. This one's going to be less performance analysis and more of a review on the Zombie Invitational 3-gun match. For some stage setting, this was a 2-day event where you had to qualify for sign up through either mention of military, law enforcement, or other match experience. No additional documentation proof was required because I participated in Woodland Brutality at the same location I was in. And the first day of the event was 2-gun with rifle and pistol, and the second day was shotgun and pistol. To briefly go over the high points of this match, the stages were extremely fun and each had their own twist to them. For example, there was a shoot house stage, which is this poorly filmed background video right now. There was a stage where you start with your hand zip tied to a pole, so you have to shoot one-handed, and then you cut yourself free and then do more shooting. There was a couple heavy multi-shot push-down targets. There were a few moving targets, and even more like that, including some challenging offhand rifle targets. Additionally, the venue invites you to camp both on Friday and Saturday. I was able to camp out on Saturday, and it was great to get into the outdoors, enjoy it out there. And they provide both dinner and breakfast, and both of those were surprisingly good. And I was also able to look through nods for the first time while camping, thanks to my buddy, so I might include some footage of that later. As for the downsides of the match, I think it can mainly be broken into two parts, both the game of the match and safety. I'll also rant on shotguns for a little bit. Due to the size of the match, the stages had to be cut down to a 90-second par time. There were a bunch of shooters and all had to get through 5 or 6 stages per day, so there was just a time constraint there. As a slightly above average shooter, at least I like to think of myself that way, I hit this par time on multiple stages, which means more than half the competitors were also unable to finish the stages and therefore get the full experience. Additionally, when hitting the par, some of the ROs give you 90 seconds plus penalties, and some just gave you last shot plus penalties, last shot time. I know for people seeing par time, they aren't going to be winning matches, but with the ladder scoring system being last shot plus penalties, it could possibly lead to some gaming where people may not even attempt to shoot at targets and then get a better time than they deserved. This could be partially alleviated potentially with bigger penalty times, but then again, it really is just the shooters who are parring out facing this, so it doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of who's really winning matches. One further annoyance here was this wasn't consistent from stage to stage. Some of the ROs would do it one way, some do it the other, so it just maintaining consistency with your ROs. The round count they provided was also a challenge for the game. For pistol, I brought more than double the number of rounds they suggested, and I finished the match with only a mag or two left. For shotgun, I brought the suggested 125 rounds of bird, and I really only got through less than 50 shells. It was pretty much the same story with rifle, but I didn't bother as much there. I wasn't as bothered. I was more bothered with the carrying too much shotgun because you had to carry all of your ammo in your pack throughout the day. So it was just heavy and bulky. Slugs were also a bit of a game with the round count. They really only suggested 10 slugs to bring with you. But the targets they provided were challenging, and therefore people would only throw a single shot at the target and then move on with a miss just because the penalty was relatively low and their supply of backup slugs was also low. All right, for safety, this was the biggest challenge of the match for me. I'll just rattle these off to save some time. With the shoot house, the steel was a bit pitted from rifle rounds, so pistol spall came back, and for one competitor, it actually tore through his thumb while he was taking his turn. He needed to go to the hospital and basically go to the ER, get bandaged, and he ended up coming back, which is good, so nothing major. One stage had its targets too perpendicular to the staging area, so a spectator was hit in the head with some spall. Really just superficial injuries, but there was a fair amount of blood being it on his face. There was one stage where, while clearing his rifle, at the end of the stage, a squad mate ND'd into the ground, and the RO pretty much just laughed it off instead of giving him a DQ let alone for the day or for the match. He didn't even leave for the day. And then this happened again a few stages later with another squad mate later in the day, where again another RO pretty much just laughed it off and let him keep running through the day and through the match. On another stage, for the sake of saving time, one RO had us making our guns hot while we were on deck and in the hole. Normally this isn't done until the RO is right up with you for your turn, but he just wanted to keep us moving along. As an additional annoyance, this RO didn't really count down to make sure we were ready. He would just pretty much say, instead of shooter ready, stand by, a second or two, then beep. It was basically shooter ready. We gave a half nod and the beep would go off. But that is more of an annoyance than a true safety concern, so that pretty much gets a pass. For two stages, they started at prone, but our pistols were hot, basically aiming hot pistols back at any spectators right behind you. While camping, one of the campers' RVs was hit with a round that either deflected or went astray during the day. This was reported later, of course, not while we were actively camping. Alright, so the last portion to discuss for this match is shotguns. And this match really showed me why shotgun matches aren't for me, or at least three gun style sort of action matches. I attempted to use a James Reeves style practical loadout pump action 7+1 with elastic and Velcro shell holders. So basically keeping these shell holders in my chest rig. Whenever the shell holder on the gun goes dry, rip that off, slap a new one on, and load from there. I originally had a red dot on it too, but the rules technically said you weren't allowed to, even though others utilized a red dot on their rigs. With 90-second stages, this gave me a clear disadvantage to other individuals who were using the 3-gun style long tube magazines, quad loads, the hip-mounted shell holders, and AR or AK style magazine fed loadouts. One of those AR style mags was actually pretty funny. I swear that thing was nearly 2 feet long and down to the guy's knees. And I mentioned earlier how slugs are annoying because, albeit understandably, people would only take a single shot at a target, then move on with a miss, eating that small penalty and conserving their limited amount of slug ammo. The pump additionally proved to not only be slower than semi-auto loadouts, but not fully reliable. A buddy of mine borrowed mine for the day, and a couple times he had a weird lockup causing failure to feed. Not totally sure what that is because I don't have enough experience on this rig, but you know, they're not foolproof. The moral of the shotgun story is that despite what your uncle says about them being the ultimate home defense weapon, they're difficult to use, they require more training than you think. They can be versatile, but a purpose-built rig is going to run circles around a generalist. And lastly, action-style shotgun matches really need to be revamped, and their rules need to be reconsidered if they're going to draw my interest again. Overall, I placed 32nd out of 122 shooters, and that's even with some bad shotgun play and parring out. But it was an incredibly fun match. I did pretty well. I would look to come back, but until the safety concerns are addressed, I just can't. If you have any questions about anything I discussed here, just let me know. Any comments, leave them down below. I'd love to talk about more of this stuff. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.